Hi, all. Welcome to a breaking news edition of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. Joining us today is Jonathan Goldberg KC. I know you're familiar with him. You love him here. One of the UK's most highly regarded criminal defense lawyers. He's defended over 100 murder cases and worked with numerous high-profile clients over the years. Jonathan, welcome. Speaking of high-profile clients, this is unreal. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office earlier today. He's since been released. Police said they were searching two properties related to the former Duke of York. You're going to go into details about potentially why we saw him arrested the way he was in association with that. The arrest came after pictures were circulating online that appeared to show unmarked police cars at Wood Farm, Andrew's current home on the Sandringham Estate, with plainclothes officers gathering outside. We'll talk a little bit about the King's statement in a second. I will stress that Andrew has been seen leaving the police station in Norfolk, so he's no longer in police custody. What is your initial reaction to this? Law enforcement acting pretty quickly since that DOJ drop, right?
Well, of course, I'm in London now, Kinsey, and it's just shock horror. There's no other way of describing it. The last time that a royal was arrested, I think was 1556, it might be 54, but anyway, it was Queen Mary, the bloody queen who only reigned for a couple of years and cut off an awful lot of heads. She arrested her sister, Elizabeth, who later became, of course, the great Queen Elizabeth I. And it just hasn't happened since then.
It's unbelievable. Now, I think as an American, I look at misconduct in public office, and I'm a little confused by what the definition of that is because
Yeah.
do we have something similar in the United States? What does that mean in the UK?
No, actually, you don't, because in the United States, there's all sorts of separate statutes and separate laws for different states. But here we have the ancient common law offense of misconduct in public office. And it's really a common law. In other words, it's judge-made law from case to case. There's no statute. And it's nonetheless very effective. And what it says is, I'll just look at my notes. The offence requires that a public officer, and if I were advising Andrew, I'd be telling him, sorry, mate, you are, when you were the trade ambassador for 11 years. If the public officer acting as such willfully neglects to perform his duty and or willfully misconducts himself to such a degree as to amount to an abuse of the public's trust in the office holder without reasonable excuse or justification, then he's guilty. And although it never would be passed, it can actually go up to life imprisonment. In reality, the cases, and we've had quite a lot of them in recent years, they sort of get 12 months, 2 years, that sort of sentence. It may interest you to know that this law has been used very regularly recently for prison officers, usually, I'm afraid, women, who are conducting affairs with prisoners or bringing drugs into prisons or SIM cards for their illegal mobile phones. And these women prison officers have been charged with this quite regularly. But that said, it's of more general application, as by now Andrew knows.
I mean, I've seen those stories you're talking about recently in the Daily Mail about women parole officers or whatever over there being in relationships and being sentenced to jail. It shocked me at the time, but how interesting that they're related here. What does the process look like? What happened to Andrew this morning? Was he put in handcuffs? Did he have to take a mug shot? Do you know? Can you walk me through maybe what that looked like for him?
Yes. Very unlikely they will have handcuffed him because obviously he will not have been resisting arrest. They will have told him why they were there. They'll have asked him to identify himself. And then they will have told him they're arresting him because they have reasonable suspicion that he's guilty of misconduct in public office. And of course, he knows, and he will have been told, that this relates to the emails which have only just surfaced because they were released only a couple of days ago by your Department of Justice. And they show that when he was trade ambassador in about 2010, December 10, he'd been for about 10, 11 years trade ambassador for Britain by that time. But anyway, he was emailing Epstein with a copy of a confidential report about Helmand province in Afghanistan. and it had to do with business opportunities there in gold mines and uranium mines and how money was to be made. And you have to remember that this was the very time, and I'm telling you something that really my own research has produced. I haven't read this anywhere, but it's a fact, as I know from other cases I conducted arising out of the Afghanistan war. I defended, for example, a famous case called Marine A. Anyway, at this time, at this exact time that he's sending this confidential report and discussing how money can be made, British troops in great numbers were fighting and dying in that very same Helmand province, which was then being called the most dangerous place on earth because of the bombs that were going off under their feet literally every 16 hours on average. So charming, isn't it?
And so
Anyway,
Andrew was basically
forgive me.
presenting Epstein with opportunities there.
Very much so. But forgive me, I was walking you through and I sort of diverted myself, didn't I? So he will have then been driven to the police station. At the police station, he will have been booked in. He will have had the indignity of giving his fingerprints and having his mugshot taken. And then he will have been placed in an extremely uncomfortable cell, because even at the very best, that's what they are, with a little open toilet and a bunk bed and maybe a blanket. And they may have offered him a cup of tea. I'm sure they did. And he'll have had to wait for his lawyer to arrive for the interview. And because no warning was given to him or to his lawyer, he wasn't allowed, unusually, to come in voluntarily by appointment at a time and place that everybody agreed. And you may say, why was that? And I would say it's because they wanted to search his two houses and probably his office, which used to be at Buckingham Palace, but wherever it is now, wherever his boxes of papers are, because they will have been looking for far more papers. And by the way, if they find more incriminating stuff, they can, of course, use it against him. So those searches will be the reason that they gave him no notice of this and his lawyer no notice of this, and why they just arrested him. They don't want him to burn the papers or shred the papers. That must be the reason. So he will have waited. Then they will have interviewed him. If I'd been advising him, actually, I'm waiting for the phone to ring, but so far it hasn't done, Kinsey. If I'd been advising him, I would have said, answer no questions. Much too dangerous. Plead the fifth, as you would say in American terms. Answer no questions until we know exactly, what this amounts to. So what will happen is they will have bailed him now at the end of the day to come back when required for further investigation, and he will obviously have agreed to do so. And it will now be a couple of months, I guess, until they read whatever they've seized today and want to ask him further questions. And on the next occasion, whenever that may be, it may be sooner, it may be they haven't found much and can, proceed much quicker than that. But then what will happen is he'll either be charged with this criminal offense of misconduct in public office, or he'll be released and they'll say there isn't enough to charge him and there isn't a case to answer. So he's got a very unpleasant period of waiting now.
Hey, listeners, look, sleep is so important, but too many of us are missing quality rest each night. That's why Dream by Beam is my new go-to. It's made with a powerful blend of all natural ingredients: reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin. The sea salt caramel flavor is my absolute favorite before bed, made right here in America by founders who believe in hard work and integrity. So if you've been waiting for the right time to try Dream, this is it. Designed to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling sharp. No grogginess. It's delicious too. They're offering my listeners an exclusive discount into the new year. Go to shopbeam.com/Kinsey, use code Kinsey, and get my exclusive offer for up to 40% off Beam's Dream Powder. With my discount code Kinsey, you can get their best-selling Dream Powder for just $39. Seriously. I mean, think about it. How much would you pay for a truly great night of sleep? With our discount, it's just $1.25 per night. So go to shopbeam.com/Kinsey today.
In America, as I'm sure you're familiar with, the second a celebrity or high-profile individual has a mugshot taken, it's released to the public almost. I mean, Trump, I think, sold merchandise with his mugshot on it. Will we see a mugshot, or are your privacy laws, do you protect those inmates, or do you protect people that are arrested more so than we do here? Would we maybe not ever see that image?
In general, you will only see that image, is my guess. Well, A, it might be leaked because there's an awful lot of policemen who might want to make money on the side. It's happened before, that's for sure, and sell it to a newspaper. But assuming that doesn't happen, and they're going to be pretty darn careful as to the police they're using here to make sure that they don't do anything like that. So then it will only be released if and when in the future he is convicted by a jury, because it's only a jury that can decide this particular offence at the Crown Court. Then they may release the mugshot. But I'd be amazed if it surfaces before then.
He was arrested with media surrounding him, and it's my understanding that the king was not given a heads up. The palace was not given a heads up. They circled and pounced. So do we believe that the media was there just because this was a story that has dominated the headlines in the UK? Or do you think maybe they did get a heads up from somebody in law enforcement? I mean, I did media this morning about now 9 different police entities investigating him. There would be reason for people to be hovering around. He's newsworthy right now, but could maybe somebody have received a heads up that the police were on their way?
I think it's more likely that they just were there anyway, and they must have got the shock of their lives and thought, oh boy, do we have a scoop now. I think
Right?
that's much more likely, because I think in this case of all cases, the police will bend over backwards to do everything by the book.
You're so right. Now, the king is in an impossible situation. He's technically, if he's prosecuted, is technically being prosecuted by the king. Does he likely have his own representation? Because the king and the monarchy, they don't want to look like they're protecting Andrew. And typically, they would all use the same firm. They've used the same firm for years. Is he alone on an island here? Epstein Island, perhaps? But is he alone on an island? Is he having to find independent help and resources?
Well, traditionally, as is well known, the queen, the last queen, and indeed the royal family for generations have used a particular firm of solicitors in London called Farrer and Company, and you couldn't be more ancient and respectable than them. I think they're even mentioned in Charles Dickens.
Wow.
But believe me, they won't be. Andrew won't be using them. That's for sure, because he has been cast aside, and indeed it's already been given to the press just this evening. I saw that his legal expenses, he's on his own. He's got to pay for them himself. So he's in big trouble. No, he will go to whoever he will go to. I'm sure very good lawyers and probably very famous lawyers in this country, but I don't know who it will be yet. But
And
one
don't,
thing
I
is
mean,
for
based
sure.
on what we know about his financial situation, I suspect he's going to be having to ask for handouts from friends. I don't know if he has the income to pay for that kind. We know that the king is bankrolling his future off at Sandringham. So, I mean, I highly doubt he has the money to afford the kind of incredible resources you would need to get you out of this situation.
Oh, they would be enormous, because if this goes to trial, you're looking, legal fees of £1 million would be a bargain. But I will say this, that most lawyers, given the chance of fame and fortune that defending Prince Andrew would bring to them, most lawyers would jump at it and lower their fees. So I don't think he'll have difficulty finding competent representation, even though it's already been announced, as I say, that the royal family are not going to pay.
From the evidence you've seen through the Epstein file dump, do you think that Prince Andrew should be worried?
I think he should be extremely worried, just as I think ex-Lord Peter Mandelson must be extremely worried, because my only question mark actually is why just Andrew, why not him? Because the emails equally show that Mandelson was leaking confidential stuff, indeed worse stuff. He was leaking cabinet reports to Epstein a year or two earlier, with very plainly market sensitive information in them, on which Epstein no doubt did all sorts of insider trading. So I think Mandelson will be next. I put money on it, but my only question is why he's not been arrested by now. Because obviously, if the police are scared of papers being shredded and burned, why not in his case as well?
Well, But also, you made the point earlier that what we saw in that DOJ dump was Andrew and Epstein scheming to make money off of the war dead of Afghanistan. And that is just truly despicable. Maybe that really rubbed somebody the wrong way and put a fire under somebody's butt. Peter Mandelson, yeah, we'll get to him. But Andrew's supposed to be a Falklands war hero.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard. It's hard to digest those two images of him going, let's make a quick buck over here. And this is supposed to be somebody that we respect because of his bravery.
If ever a man went from the heights to the lowest depths in a few years, it's Andrew and that awful wife of his, Sarah Ferguson.
Does it surprise you that this? Oh, go ahead.
I think she takes a lot of blame, because her moral character is so awful. And if you're married to a wife like that, it must bring you down morally.
The person you choose to marry can make or break you. I mean, look at Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. Kind of unrelated, but also related. Okay.
Yes,
does it surprise you that this is what he was arrested for? And I almost want to say first, when his alleged sex crimes have been public knowledge for years. Now, Andrew says he's innocent, but now we have a former prime minister saying Epstein flew into London on the Lolita Express 90 times, multiple times after his 2008 arrest and conviction. We have emails suggesting that Epstein is sending girls in Andrew's direction. So are you surprised that it would be this that he's arrested for?
No. If I look at this whole situation through the eyes of a criminal lawyer, and if I try to put my sort of prosecuting lawyer's hat on for the moment, it's going to be a lot harder to prove the sex charges against Andrew than it will be, I suspect, to prove the misconduct in public office. You see,
one of the victims is now deceased. Virginia has unfortunately passed away. She took her own life.
Yes, exactly. So she can't come as a witness. You can't sort of read her book in court in place of her testimony because she can't be cross-examined, obviously.
Yeah.
So it can't be a fair trial based on anything except the person giving evidence. Are there other girls? Not clear who would be witnesses. Probably not. Probably they wouldn't want to get involved. And remember as well that in England, the age of consent is actually a girl can consent to sexual intercourse from 16, but from 18, they're adults in England. So it's not clear that any girl says that they had relations with Andrew who was under the age of consent. So again, the age of consent in America and Florida is lower. So it would have been easier to bring the charges in America than it is in England. I think there's all sorts of tremendous problems in prosecuting him in England for the sex charges, actually. So it doesn't surprise me, no, that this one came first, because here you've got on the face of it, him emailing Epstein and giving away confidential, secret information. Seems pretty cut and dried. And I think they may yet find that there were more such examples when they search his papers.
Yeah, there's that tangible evidence. Does it concern you at all that we've been watching him move? That we've been watching him transport, boxes from one location to another? Does it concern you at all that while he's been in the process of moving, he might have been tossing some papers in the trash or in the fireplace in the last few weeks that really could have been crucial to this investigation?
Well, the answer is who knows, but I'm sure the police are asking that very question.
Yeah. I certainly would be.
Life is busy, mornings start fast, coffee is essential, and routines need to work, not complicate things. People want products that support how they live now, because real beauty is about supporting what keeps you strong, radiant, and feeling your best. That's where Native Path Collagen comes in. This is not a trendy, overhyped beauty product. This is the real deal. It contains type 1 and type 3 collagen, which make up roughly 90% of the collagen found in the human body. These are the building blocks that support skin skin, hair, and joint health. Native Path helps support those systems. One single ingredient, no fillers, no nonsense, just high quality collagen. Each morning, one scoop can be mixed into coffee or your favorite beverage. It dissolves easily, has no taste, and fits seamlessly into your everyday routine. Many people report stronger hair, smoother, more hydrated skin, and less joint stiffness, especially in the mornings. Try it yourself. Visit getnativepath.com/unfiltered to take advantage of a special offer today. That's getnativepath.com/unfiltered for a special bundle deal at a fraction of the retail price, backed by a risk-free 365-day guarantee. If you want to look good, feel good, and actually support your body instead of just hoping your moisturizer is magic, Native Path is where you start. Getnativepath.com/unfiltered.
Let's listen, or let's just read through parts of the king's reaction to this. In a statement issued hours after reports of the arrest, the king called for a full, fair, and proper process into any allegations facing his younger brother. He said, "What now follows is the full, fair, and proper process by which this issue is investigated in the appropriate manner and by the appropriate authorities." The Press Association reported that the Prince and Princess of Wales supported the king's statement following the arrest of Andrew. Do you read anything between the lines there? What's your response to that statement? And how does the royal family separate themselves from this mess?
Well, Kinsey, let's not forget the all-important sentence in that statement you've read, but there was a line you missed, if you'll forgive me.
No.
The law must take its course, said the king. The law must take, and that to me is the most important sentence in the document, actually. So King Charles is frankly, I would expect, and the public would expect in Britain, because he's grown in office enormously, you know. We had our doubts whether he would be a worthy successor to his mother, but in fairness, he really has stepped up to the mark. So he's playing it with a very straight bat. You couldn't have a more honourable statement than that, given the terrible circumstances in which he finds himself as king and head of the royal family. I mean, you know the irony, don't you, that whereas in your country, every indictment is the people against Kinsey Schofield for murder, let's say. But of course, in Britain, it's the king, it's Rex versus Kinsey Schofield, yes? So it will be literally, if this case is indicted and goes to the Old Bailey, it will be the king against Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, who is, of course, his brother. I mean, it's just so unprecedented. But you said to me, the situation in which the king now is, I think he'll play it honorably. I think he'll give all the cooperation that may be asked of him. I don't know. They may be, for example, wanting to search Andrew's old office in Buckingham Palace. I have no doubt at all they will be allowed to. The king isn't getting rid of any documents, that's for sure. So he's doing the right thing. He's playing it honorably. And I think there'll be a great outpouring of sympathy for him in this predicament. You know, we've all got black sheep members of our family, haven't we? And we understand the predicament of the king now.
That's interesting that you say that, because one of the questions I had written down for you is, could this arrest have happened under a Queen Elizabeth reign? To me, it does feel like this is an inherited problem, that the Queen's courtiers and team did not handle it appropriately, that the Queen was trying to protect her favorite child through and through. So would we have seen something similar under a Queen Elizabeth reign? And again, this is a hypothetical. You've seen a lot in your lifetime. You've experienced a lot through the court system, but this is just a question that kind of haunts me. I wonder if we're only seeing this justice today because it's King Charles.
Kinsey, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I really do. Because Andrew was the child who could do no wrong for the late Queen. She had a blind spot where he was concerned. Let's not forget that the moment these Virginia Giuffre allegations arose, what was the reaction of the Queen? It was to give Andrew some enormous honor that, only a dozen people in the land can get, to show publicly her support for him and how she refused to believe it. She did it literally a day later than the allegations appeared. And then, of course, she paid what's reported to be the sum of £12 million to settle the case of Jufra on terms that Jufra kept her mouth shut and didn't say anything further against Andrew. So Mummy paid to hush that one up. Of course, it would have worked, wouldn't it? Except for all the fuss that was then made over Epstein, which eventually caused the House of Representatives to pass a law whereby the Department of Justice had to release all this stuff. And that has led to what we know happening in the last literally week, 2 weeks. It's not more than that. Seems like it's years, but I mean, this has all happened like an express train. It's within days. So when you ask the question, would this have happened under his mother? There are many people who would say shamefully it wouldn't. It would have been hushed up. I don't know, you don't know, but let's put it this way. What is happening now is happening with great transparency and propriety. And for that, you have to admire King Charles.
Agreed. My last question to you is, I don't know if we've seen anything illegal, but should Fergie be worried?
Well, Fergie, of course, has sold herself to the highest bidder in so many ways, for anything for a buck, anyone for a buck, anywhere for a buck. And that's what the emails show. But we already knew that. I mean, over the last 20, 30 years, could you have had more examples than you've had? So we don't have her as a public official, as he was in his role as trade ambassador. And therefore, what she's done, however immoral, however disgusting it may be, what she's done, I don't think is criminal. So I'd be very surprised if you would see any criminal enforcement against Fergie.
Well, you're my go-to for this. Who am I calling? The second I'm getting out of bed, it's you. If there are any new developments, I hope you're prepared to hop back on with me so we can explore this quickly evolving story together.
It will be my pleasure.
Jonathan Goldberg KC, thank you so much for your time today. And I will link to your podcast because that Afghanistan trial you talked about is live right now on your podcast. So I'll make sure that is linked in down below. But thank you so much for your time today. I greatly appreciate you, and you're so knowledgeable. So you were the perfect person for me to connect with.
You're very kind to say so.
All right. Agree with us, disagree with us. Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Thanks, everyone.